now that I'm just not seeing. And it's only, again, that's why people feel like you have to be a Black feminist, because it's a topic that only really Black feminists are talking about, because it deals with being Black.
Mm. How do beauty standards make you feel, Morris?
Not to mention, the European, like, people, their beauty standards are wild. Like, some of the people who don't be like, this is the beautifulest person on earth, we're just like, no. So it's like, why would you let them determine your worth? I don't understand that. That's for any POC. Like, how could you let that determine your worth when they literally mimic everybody else? Like, I feel like that's my issue with POCs, even my own people. That it's just like, come on now. How you let someone who copy you make you feel less than?
I mean, kind of what you're saying, Antonia, as a Black Latina woman in my community, right? Like, I grew up and I was ugly, right? Like, that's what I was considered. I was not considered beautiful. Of feeling ugly, but also being told I was, right, had a lot to do with what is believed in my community, right? Colorism is one of them. And so to say...
See, that's the thing. That's what I was getting at. Like, yeah, why is your community doing that? Because to me personally, right? Because even in my own community, even the mulattoes, I see people doing that, featurism, colorism, and I'm just like, how are you going to let another group tell you your worth? But yet that group is tending to look like us. They're getting their lips pumped up to look like Black women. They're getting BBLs to look like, other races of women. So it's like, I know, like, from being around white people, they have, like, a lot of insecurities too. I'm not putting this all on them, because you allowed them to make you feel that way. And I wouldn't do that, because I don't care.
I'm going to redefine beauty for myself, and to say I own myself and I get to decide what's beautiful, right? And I get to decide.
Thank you. That's literally what I'm saying. Like, it ain't no way. I just love people who are just so authentically them and just love themselves. Because, like, yeah, there's going to be people in every race group, including white people, who like, oh no, white people are ugly. I need me to have mixed babies. Or, oh, like, mulattoes, like, oh, I want to get with, like, I want to be darker because I don't like being high yellow. Like, every group is going to have those people, but they're just insecure. Don't let them affect the way you view if they call you ugly, be like, no, like, look at yourself. You hate yourself. That has nothing to do with me.
I want to wear and how I want to wear it. And I don't need to, right? It's almost a repelling, right? Like, I'm like, no, you know what? I am beautiful. I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to feel myself, because if no one else is going to feel me, it's on me to feel me too.
I got to say, though, I did grow up being referred to as very beautiful for a woman with a disability. And that, to me, always fed this idea that disability doesn't mean beautiful. I am in some form of exceptionalism, which I then had to keep up with forever. So it's like, I got this thought as I started to age, like, you can have no legs, but you better not fucking get fat. And so this idea that, like, there are certain people who are beautiful and certain people who aren't, and that inherently holds value.
But who is telling you that? Like, are they even attractive themselves? See, I feel like y'all didn't bully people enough back. You want to bully people back because who are you? At the end of the day, probably out here looking like a toad, but you want to talk about somebody else. See, that's what you really, I don't even understand. I don't get it. Like, I don't got no legs, but you don't have no eyebrows. So, like, what are you talking about? You get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like y'all didn't bully people back, and it's showing, and that is what it is. Y'all need to love yourself. Stop letting people get in your head, project their insecurities. They don't have to like you. Not everybody's going to like everybody. I don't even believe in beauty standards, because how's somebody else going to tell me my standard of beauty or someone else's standard of beauty?
Is, I think, find it in yourself, yes. And
Jordan?
Beauty standards are toxic bullshit, hierarchical nonsense. And I say that as someone who has spent over a year collectively of my life in eating disorder institutions, because I have tried to put my body through hellish things to meet these beauty standards, which more often than not are not based in reality. They're typically trends. They're created to push things. They're extremely useful for marketing, but they don't serve anyone's health. They don't serve anyone's self-esteem. They only act to try and tell us that there's a allegedly right way to have a body. And if you don't occupy that space and have that body, then you're a piece of shit, which is absolute nonsense. And there are way too many women and men in the world who end up doing terrible things to themselves because they fall into this trap of thinking that you have to be this way. And if you aren't this way, then there's something inherently wrong at your core, which is nonsense. You're perfect the way you are. That's literally the core of it. You are perfect the way you are. And anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is feeding into this industry and is just, they're not your friend or looking out for you.
Layla?
Oh yeah, I was going to say, yeah, beauty in the industry is exploitative, but also we have to remember a lot of the beauty standards are based around health, what's perceived as health, like symmetry, certain weights, things like that. So there is that side where we have to balance it, and I think we're seeing so much more representation, which I think is incredibly important.
Well, I just think that like
It's so true. Like there needs to be balance, and there's always gonna be loudmouths. But the thing is, y'all let the loudmouths have a voice because y'all don't believe them back. Like I'm just saying, I think everyone should be healthy and take their health seriously. But outside of that, like I guess like the 70s, the 80s, like I feel like people were pretty healthy back then. And everyone looked beautiful. Everyone talks about how beautiful people look back then. I do think the processed food has like made this, and people may have tried to say like, well, I do remember people trying to say like, don't eat processed foods, and people weren't really listening. So now they're being louder, like, oh well, you're a fatty, so like they can grab your attention. When really what they're trying to say is like, hey, don't eat that processed food because it can cause cancer, it can cause obesity, it can cause all these other things.
if women really cared about beauty standards, like the obesity rate wouldn't be what it is.
But what
Let's
about
try to
you?
maintain the beauty standards. I mean,
Bye, because I saw this clip and I died. But she is so petty. She is so petty. And it's like she was just smiling, like she was waiting, like, I dare you. She's having a great time.
I just think like some people are more attractive, some people are less attractive, and that's just, where would I rate myself 1 to 10?
we're not rating. It's okay.
That's what I mean. Like I just think like some people
So
are more
if you
attractive.
are overweight, you don't care about beauty standards.
Well,
Is that right?
like the point is that the beauty standard is thin, right?
Your standard?
Obesity comes from men and women, though. Yeah, you're right. That's true. But
That's only in certain communities because I grew up being real skinny. And let me tell you something. The brown and black community gonna let you know you need to eat. We don't do that skinny stuff over here, okay? It may be in some communities they want you to be skinny, but that is not around the world, okay? There's some people who like them thick, not obese, like not too obese because that's a health problem, but thick, like meat on your bones. So that's really community to community. That's what I said. No one can determine your beauty standards in your community besides your community. And if they're self-hating, kick them out the community. It's that simple. People gotta start exiling people again.
saying if women really wanted to fit the beauty standard, they would be thin. I know, from my experience as well, is growing up again in a mostly white neighborhood but I was always comparing myself to literally other people who have a different body type, but I was considered other or too.
That explains exactly why she felt that way, because she grew up in like a white neighborhood and they have a certain standard for their people. But as someone who like grew up like I guess in the white side, like I kind of like got a lot of praise, like maybe like more so fetishized from men and women or boys and girls. Like people crazy on both sides, but they're a lot harsher on their own people, and I think they think that that's just normal. And I'm not excusing that at all, but like they're so harsh to their own. Like I just remember like having friends, and they'll look at their siblings, boy or girl, and one of them will be like, "Ew, you're getting fat." Like that's horrible to say to someone, but it's normalized in that community. Where in my other side, they'd be like, "Oh, you're getting skinny." So it's just like, dude, you. It's just like people are just really harsh.
Something because it didn't conform to that body type. When that same body type became popular with Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians, who are different, right, than me, let's just say, are different skin color, right? And there's a lot of animosity, and a lot of black communities of the fact that when it was on black skin, it was an issue, but when it was on Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians, it was $1 billion business.
Yep.
I get what they're saying, but why do you care what white people think of you? Like, I'm not trying to be mean, but at the same time, I get so mad at POCs when they just keep talking about, well, white people like this. I don't care what white people like. What do you like? Like, back in the day, like, I was so in love with black culture, like, during the 90s, because there was so much great television for black people, and those bodies were being promoted. They were being celebrated. They were being loved. Even, like, on the quote unquote bad end of things where there's like freak Nick, those bodies were being celebrated within the community. So why are you letting people who are not within your community, like, opinions bother you?
Time together has almost come to an end. We sort of started talking about feminism, big picture. We're going to try again. Is feminism dead?
I think feminism is alive, and I'm thankful to be a participant and believer of it.
I would say, as far as the West goes, I think that feminism has been cannibalized by other movements like leftism, like transgenderism.
So I think feminism is very much alive and well. I think it takes different forms depending on who you're talking to, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And as I've defined in the beginning, for me, I use it as a lens. So I don't think I'll ever stop having it in my arsenal, if you will. It makes for a good vice panel.
Okay, we're done. I appreciate everybody taking the time. I know this is, it got a little heated at times, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Can I stand up now? Oh my God. Are we actually really done?
I love arguing.
I don't think I have had this long in a
Well, that was a good panel. Honestly, the two people on the very end of each side were in the front were really annoying because they were just too aggressive. I think everyone else did amazing. There's always going to be those provocateur people there, and I think they handled them very well. Like the girl right here in the green, she was like, disagreeing and agreeing with certain things, but she handled herself so well. So yeah, I think they did amazing. I think the feminism name or feminist name has been tainted, unfortunately. I think there are certain people who use it for good and the rest of people use it for pure evil. They want to be like the kings of the world versus actual equals. And it shows. Bye-bye.